Today's podcast is a little bit different, but I'm super excited that I had the chance to speak with this person. You may know him from Lifetime's A Sorority Mom's Guide to Rush. And a lot of people will know the show Netflix's Insatiable because it was based off of a lot of his life. So, Bill Alverson joins me on the podcast today, and we're discussing everything and anything. It was a very, very in-depth full chat. It was great getting to know Bill and his whole history. He is an attorney. He's out in the deep South. We talked about him, coaching these moms and daughters on this new Lifetime reality show. So we dug into it all. So I hope you guys enjoy this and let me know your thoughts. And if you're watching A Sorority Mom's Guide to Rush,
we need to talk about this. Talk about this.
All right, now here's your host of the Georgio Says podcast. It's Georgio.
We need to talk about this.
Hi guys, just jumping in with Bill Alverson. Bill, thanks for being with me. We are here because we were just actually discussing the show on Lifetime that Bill is on, A Mom's Guide to Sorority, Rush. And Rush is a big topic, I would say, in the last few years on social media. We're seeing a lot of the Rush activity.
Right.
And the show is insane in the best possible way. There's so many characters, the moms in particular, so many layered characters. Bill, what got you motivated to want to jump in and do a show like this?
Well, it's interesting. I'm one of the odd ones. I didn't put anything out there going, hey, let me pitch this idea to somebody. You know, a lot of people have that and they're coming. They actually came to me because of my TikToks. I thought it was because I had done other TV projects, and it does show that when you're in one world, you may be thinking you're circling this moon circling you, and absolutely, I had a whole other planet over here. And so we started talking about interview prep, those type things. In fact, the producer made a comment to me, Lauren, and she said, well, I said, go find a pageant coach. He's got to have worked with girls just randomly. And they found that. And then in their surprise, as they were talking with me, they didn't have to introduce me to the aspect of Rush because I've already been coaching that as a side thing, a little bit all the way along for over 30 years. So It was like they were panning for gold and found a big ass nugget. And so then that started from there, and then boom, here it was, and the show kind of changed in concept. And I'm old and, been around the block a little bit. And I coach this, don't let yourself get in the way. And so I kind of really was like a kid in the car seat, just sitting, where's this ride going? Because it went more of a focus on the girls than a focus, is it just going to be about the moms? And then they kind of centered where it hit, which worked well because in the show, and part of what I do with a lot of my coaching, particularly those that are not adults yet, I like their moms to be present. One, just general safety issues. Even though I'm gay, woohoo, I don't need, we kind of brought that on my show Insatiable, where somebody's falsely accusing the male. It's a real thing.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a good point. I don't think a lot of people think about that aspect. Even though you are gay, it's like you still need to have that, barrier of protection for everyone involved, really.
And it's just smart. I started really not from the sensibility of being aware, because I was previously married to a woman. I have a family, I have children. And with some of the coaches, my daughters and my son, they were all really great athletes. And so they had different coaches in their life.
Yes.
The coaches that only wanted to work with my children and did not want to talk to me, I didn't really like.
That's kind of a red flag.
Yeah,
well, it is.
It is. And it's so common. There are people that I know that do coaching going, Mama, sit out here. I'm going to talk to her in there. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. And it came from me because I didn't want that feeling. I didn't want to be that person. But on the other hand, then being a criminal defense attorney and a divorce and domestic lawyer, the number one thing in divorce is you don't get the money for adultery that you used to, but you sure get it for abuse.
Mm.
And we've had to fight to get these laws to protect women and men from domestic violence and abuse, but people don't realize those laws didn't happen until 2000. So many people think it's always been part of culture. I'm like, no, the 1800s, your husband could beat the hell out of you and you could get a divorce, but he got to keep the kids. So we have to really look at where's our gender equality coming here, right? And I was at an American Bar Association. I'm a member, even though I'm in a rinky-dink town. And we were in a little subcommittee group working, trying to get states to pass these laws, and are they're coming and how do they work? It's just some, infancy navigation.
Hmm.
And I had just had a case where my client was not abusive to his wife at all. She just wanted to get him out and she wanted to take everything. She got tired of him. He got in a pot belly and she liked to have a little more firmer stomach. So he's like, I don't want to move. And I'm like, you don't have to. It's your house too. But he said, oh, she's going to raise hell when I come in tonight. And I'm like, we put a recorder in his coat pocket. So she's in there and she's like, get the hell out. You can't be here. All the stuff. It's mine.
Hmm.
And he's like, I'm not leaving. We'll be in different rooms. I don't want to stay in a camper. You can go stay in the camper. Immediately she switches, calls 911, calm, and then starts screaming, being the actress that she can be, about he's going to hit me. He's going to,
Oh my God.
creating the circumstance. So the deputy sheriff shows up and she's like, oh my God, I'm so afraid, whatever. And my client pulls out the recorder and hits play. And the deputy sheriff looked at him and said, no, ma'am, we're not taking him in. If you do another false call, we're going to take you in. It caused the case to get in its right place to get resolved.
Sure.
Not quite the way the woman wanted it to be. Well, I relate that story. And around 2001 at the American Bar meeting, boy, they eviscerated me. They were like, what are you doing? You always believe the woman, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not saying I don't believe the woman, but there's abuse going on here.
Well, yeah, I
Flash.
mean, that's kind of it's about we're talking about equality, right? So you can't just always blame one person, even if they've never done anything.
Correct. And here's the big thing. I do believe in believing women. The problem
Of
is
course.
that you have lawyers, not that we're not the greatest and nicest and kindest people, who tell to someone you have no grounds to get any alimony. Is he abusing you? Have you been threatened? Have you been hit? Now there's a lawyer in my community that will send clients to file protections from abuse pro se that may or may not stick to
Hmm.
set the case up. Well, I have through the years talked to different circuit judges that try these cases, and what I'm hearing now is they have an eye cocked every time they hear these things to see when and if it's valid. And lots of times there'll be the follow-up text from the guy, I'm so sorry, I lost my cool last night. Boom, you just said what she said's true, right? And she should be protected. And the big problem I have when they were coming at me was I'm an advocate. I have daughters. I'm very much an advocate for women's rights, but I'm not an advocate for false evidence that turns around to diminish and make it even harder for the next lady who genuinely has been a victim. And the males that are victims talk about gender discrimination. They look at that man and go, you're such a weak thing. What do you mean? You're letting this woman knock you around?
I think that's why a lot of men probably don't even talk about it.
And then go into the same sex gay situation. They just basically treat it like, oh, it's just a bunch of fags fighting. And I'm like, no. And that's one good thing about me with my sexuality. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. We're not going to dismiss this.
Well, I think it shouldn't matter what the dynamic of the relationship is. If
100%.
it's in the form of physical abuse, you should be protected under the law, and everyone should be treated fairly with the proper evidence. And
Should be.
it's a tricky should be, right? Because everyone has a different view on every layer of it's so layered, everything is now, but it's definitely layered. And I agree that especially when it's a same-sex partnership, it's just like, that's not.
It's just so wrong. We have to, and thankfully, being a gay attorney and one of the few that are out there that are public, particularly in Alabama and those places, when I've had same-sex situations, I'll just look at them and go, okay, what? No, I'm not playing that game.
Mm-hmm,
No.
mm-hmm.
And I will handle it because my client just, particularly people in same-sex situations, we all don't live in LA and New York. I can remember I was out in LA and I was talking about some of these circumstances. That still goes on. I'm like, honey, get off the coast. Come to the
Yeah.
come to the bulk of America and let me tell you what happens. People threw bottles at me riding my bicycle. There are things that were done. My law firm voted me out because of my sexuality. People overreact to it so greatly here. But it was interesting. Oh, around that same time, way back in 2000, I had a good friend of mine, and this is before I was out. This is me kind of navigating and figuring my world. But I was a counselor for him for his divorce in Pennsylvania, and he had me come to one of the LGBT community centers in New York. I forgot the name of it. He said, "Will you come?" It was a fathers meeting, like fathers of gay. You're either adopted. It's a father situation dealing with gay men. So I went and I spoke to them and we were talking. It was really interesting. There was a man in there and he was an attorney in Manhattan. And he said, "You would be surprised, depends upon what judge you draw, will determine how they handle the same sex situations." And I'm like, what? Because I just assumed in Manhattan that people are going to go like, calm down.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've lived there for quite a minute and I thought the same thing going into it. I was like, this is going to be a breeze, right? I can
Right.
just jet down wherever, do whatever. But then slowly in the cracks, you see them kind of peek through from time to time. It's not loud, but it's definitely present and it's interesting.
You had a good word. You said it's not loud. That's the thing.
Hmm.
In the South, our bigotry is pretty damn obvious. Hello. In the North, they act as if it's not there. But when I
Hmm.
used to own part of a retail store and I would go to New York to buy, and they would hear I was from Alabama, then they would start speaking racist to me because they thought they had a common denominator. And I was like, no, my first job, I worked for the
Hmm.
first black elected to statewide office. My grandfather did go to Columbia. Yes, we had help, but they weren't help. They were employees. He put them on Social Security in the 40s. I've yet to meet anybody that did what my granddaddy did. And they always talk about how elite they are and smarter or whatever. And there's a lot of truth to that. But on the other hand, don't diminish or don't define someone by their geographic zip code on how they think. Some of us are a little blue dot living and existing being passive activists. I've had people be critical in the past after Coach Charming came out going, if he really was this way, he would have left. And I'm like, if we leave, what about the kids that don't have my backbone? What about our suicide rates? The emails and letters I get, it's kind of amazing. And I'm like, I've got to be here.
I think it's a very good point, valid point, because if everyone leaves the small towns, these places where maybe people haven't evolved and progressed as quickly as the rest of the coasts or whatnot, there are still going to be children that are gay. Like it's not going to
Hey,
go,
they're
it's not going to
coming.
stop, you know?
You're not
So
going to stop growing that crop, people.
if you keep leaving, then it leaves no motivation for that child when they start to grow to have any. So like for me, like Kevin Aquan was a big image for me to say, I can do that and actually be recognized and people wouldn't throw rocks at me, per se. And this is me as a child thinking this. So I
Sure.
can only imagine today with the internet and social media and all these things, like there's just so many things being thrown every direction. So I think it's actually very important to have passive activism in these smaller towns because people need to see it in action.
It's interesting. And I like how you said that. I'm 64. So when I was in high school, struggling with a little bit. I had a little encounter. I didn't know what it was. My choir director assaulted me. Pushed me back in the closet more. I blocked it out for 25 years. I mean, I'm all good now. But I mean, you're dealing with those type things. I thought a gay person was a hairdresser or a dancer. I didn't know anybody, right? I didn't see anybody. And so that's so visible now. Will and Grace changed the world, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of goes. But what I found is that be yourself. Of course, I want to live in New York, Manhattan, Berlin, whatever. But fucking come home and show up at holidays and go to church with your mother and wear a damn scarf or a pink jacket if you want. If you're a flamboyant dresser in your regular life, don't tone it down. And the reason I say that is because now that I got married to a man, I practice law with my son, and we got married. I had to go to another county to get married because we were one of those counties, like good old Kentucky lady. They would not issue marriage certificates to stop people like me from having a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to another county. 5 months later, we were doing our wedding party, and I had decided, you know what, we're gonna do something. This is 2018, so we did Studio 54 at 1004. That was my address then, and it was 1978. Everybody dressed per theme because I'm a homo. We're gonna do a theme.
Absolutely.
Because if I already had the heteronormative wedding, I didn't want to put my tux on and this. Okay, it's fine and nice. If people want to do that, it's great. But what we did, we kind of took it out and blew over. Insatiable was in the process. They flew somebody from the show writer actually came in to see it, to watch the community, really, because 90 something percent of the people there were not gay. A couple gay friends came from out of town. My ex-wife even came, and they theme partied it up. They had the best time. But what it did was, why are we here? We have probably the first open same-sex marriage in my little town that we're going to do something publicly. And then with that and the TV, and I realized I had a previous boyfriend, and that's when I came out on social media. He was like, people are stopping in front of your house and taking a picture. Now's the time. Because we had gone to a function, and I swear to God, you talk about head swiveling on a stick. It's true. There he is with his boyfriend, that kind of thing. So you eliminate the fight sometimes. The best defense is the straight offense. So
Hmm.
by doing that, I didn't even see the riptide of what that would go with. Everybody I knew in my life that we were friends with on social media instantly know that Bill's a homo and he's got a boyfriend.
Hmm.
And I got so many different reactions, but the main thing is I wasn't living for their approval. The only thing I concerned about was could I still make money? And I kept going on. Now, fast forward to 2025, I'm doing divorces of people in their 20s, and there's so much bisexuality going on with kids today.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I have conservative, your judge trying this case is conservative. That little tape of Bob and Billy with Tammy doesn't need to go. They don't
Oh.
get it. These are older men not even having sex, or they're just see it their way. And both parties get it, but what's really come out with me is that a lot of these males that have been involved in experimentation or bisexuality do not identify as gay, but they're trying new things. Hello, watch Hunting Wives. The pegging is the new rage, and
Hmm.
you see all these things, and I'm like, we are getting to accept ourselves. I've talked to parents who they think their kids are trans or their kids are transitioning out of Andalusia, out of my little town.
Hmm.
I have also people telling me, and this is the reason I said go home. Numerous people have said, I can't come back because it will make things for my parents uncomfortable. And of course, I want to type bullshit, full thing. Your parents had you, they should love you as is, and don't enable that bigotry. I just had lunch last week with a girl from here who is married to another woman, and her parents are not comfortable with them spending the night under the same roof, right? And I'm like, okay, I have a guest bedroom, use it, but come back. You have friends and people here. They ask about you, they talk about you, they support you, they celebrate you.
Hmm.
You still be you and give space and grace to the other person. The best advice I ever got, I know we went way off topic. I'm gonna let you ask the
No,
question.
you're totally fine.
The best advice I ever received was after you do the whole come out to your family. And my son and I were very close. But there was some distance that first summer and it was interesting. My dad knew about my sexuality at this point because my sister told him when I was knocked out on drugs having pancreatitis. So, I mean, it's like a twisted Southern, like sordid lives situation. And my father, who initially said he would never go to my wedding, but he was there, who
Mm.
loves my son, he does love my son, but he loves my husband.
Hmm.
They're old now, they're 90. And my husband will even go provide and take care for them, and they have the best time. So I tell these people, don't assume where somebody's going to stay, but do it not abrasively. Don't be a badass. We're not playing act up. Sometimes you have to with families. I get it.
Yeah.
This episode of the Georgio Says podcast is brought to you by Golly Nutrition, the inventive, people-focused nutrition company making your daily supplements simple and delicious. Every Golly product is crafted with high-quality ingredients you can pronounce and flavors your taste buds will love. At the heart of Golly is purpose. Through the Golly for Good initiative, they support our planet and our communities, partnering with Vitamin Angels and Eden Reforestation Projects. Visit golly.com today and use the code TheGiorgioSays at checkout for a special discount just for our listeners. That's Golly Nutrition. Simple, delicious, and good for the world. Now back to the episode.
But if you can ease into it. So my father called me and said, you need to have a conversation with your son. He is in law school. He wants to come back and practice with you. He doesn't know about you. How is that going to work with him and his life? It's unfair for him to come back in and then boom, he start his practice with you. And he could have, because he was a very successful in law school, he could have gone lots of different places, but he wanted the life that he had, and his wife is wonderful and that's great. But my father was very clear that's you're not being fair to him. And it kind of threw me back, going, always think about yourself, right? We are very new age in that. How does this affect me?
Mm-hmm.
And I should be able to be the person I am, as twisted as it came out, and I celebrate that. So I had the conversation, and we were a little bit, nothing ugly, just a little bit staying space. He's digesting. So I talked to a really good friend of mine named Faith, and she said, how's it going? I said, it really kind of hurts my feelings. We go to lunch, go to dinner, and now it's like I've already got plans. Or, you know, I was driving 10 hours round trip every weekend to see my daughters because they were living with their mom in Georgia. And I would come back in, then he would go to bed, you know. So,
Mm.
because he was staying with me that summer. And she talked to me on the phone and said, how long did it take you to really come to grips with who you really are in your sexuality? I said, probably 8 years. Once I had the moment of, I'm not going to step in front of the subway. I'm not going to kill myself.
Right.
So my place, it's better for me to be dead before my this all comes out because my community will not support me and my family. At least I'll provide them the money, and the secret dies with me. And I know people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Know that feeling. I can be empathetic because literally I'm on the edge of the subway thing, one step. All it takes is one step. And then I stepped back and I called myself, I'm a coward. I'm not a coward. Quit acting like one. And everything started getting better from in my mind to get ready going forward. So that being said, and I talked with her and she said, oh, so in 3 to 4 weeks, you expect him to be where you are? Boy, that knocked the wind out of my sails. I sat back and went, yeah, I'm not giving him grace time. I'm not giving him the emotional response because his best buddy dad is not what he thought he was. And
Yeah, I mean, not sorry to cut you off. It just made me realize something because I think a lot of us who it doesn't really matter what the situation is so much because, like, for instance, someone could be like, for me, I feel like I work a lot on my spiritual growth and evolving and trying to understand every angle and speak to every type of person I can, whether I agree with them or not
sure, that's perfect.
because my that's just how my dad was. He would talk to every walk of life because he found everyone to be interesting. Everyone had a story. Nonetheless, sometimes when you're evolving and growing, you do a lot of work on yourself. And sometimes when you meet someone who's close to you or is in your inner circle, your lover, your family, you intentionally are doing something great by trying to like do this thing. You're trying to share something with them, this newfound way, but sometimes they're not as receptive yet because they're not even maybe at the beginning of unpacking any of this. But I have found myself getting very upset and like offended, even like, well, what's the problem? Like I'm literally telling you it's fine and it's gonna be did it. But to them, this has to be something they have to start to unpack before they can even sit parallel with you and have that type of dialogue.
I think you have that perception and that's what I learned from that circumstance. And you talk about packing and unpacking. Sometimes you don't even have the damn suitcase yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's
I mean,
true.
and they don't have any working knowledge. My mother wanted to know if I had been sexually assaulted, and my boyfriend had sexually assaulted me, and that's why I'm gay. And I'm like, Mom, that's not how it works. And then she dead ass looked at me in the eye and said, well, tell me how it does. I don't understand. When I told my parents after the whole coming out thing with them, I told my dad and talked about faith. The next morning, I said, I know that's not something you wanted to hear because there is a lot of fear from parents with their kids being gay. Hello, Matthew Shepard is a real thing. And I
Hmm.
have been taunted my entire life for being skinny, told I was sissy, the whole thing. I'm the theater major, or not major, but theater star and all that shit
Hmm.
in high school. And everybody laughs, going, oh my God, the clues were all around, Bill. Your parents didn't see it. Well, yeah, I get it. It's kind of like in that off-Broadway show, Prince Faggot. Look at us at 3. I'm sure there's plenty of pictures of me looking like the cute little homo. That's fine. But you don't know what you don't know. And you got to
Yeah.
give people space for that, right?
Hmm.
And so my dad said that morning, the next day when I said that to him, and my father's a strong person of faith. I don't say religion because that's the nasty part. But
Hmm.
he said, I turned that over. I just turned that over to the Lord. This is bigger than me. And I just turned it over. Bill, I'm not worried about it anymore. And I said, well, we're not getting married. I was dating somebody else. And he goes, I don't know if I can go to a wedding, but I'm not going to worry about that. My mom looked at me after the first thing she wanted to blame my wife. Like if she'd been a better wife, this wouldn't happen. I had to like handle that. No, because my ex-wife is still close to my parents. She even stays at their house if she's coming through town. Something we've collaboratively all worked on for family.
Yeah.
See the bigger picture. We have children here. Get out. So if we're fucked up, fine. But we've got to keep our kids where they're going. And my mom said, I carried you under my heart. Why did you think I wouldn't be there? And my heart breaks when I have other people call me going, well, they are no longer talking to me. And I'm like, you know what? You do what's best to take care of you, but I'm not like trained psychologist. But people don't get over a rejection of a parent. I work a lot with foster care kids and I do a lot of mentally ill. And I'll have even in divorces, and this woman wants to get replacement dad. And I'm like, oh, and I just wish he would terminate his rights and let my husband take over. And I said, hold on, that's for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does it do to a 10-year-old who doesn't understand life that just knows daddy doesn't want me anymore?
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're looking at rehab in your future, lady. And nobody says things like that, like, oh, that's abrasive, and you're assuming things. But like, no, I represent criminal defendants, and like your dad, I want to know the why behind the where and how we are, right?
Yeah.
If you know that, then I can help get us where we need to be and make a change. I had a judge looked at me one time and said, you spend so much time talking to your criminal defendants. Why? And he wasn't being, he just asked what I was working. I said, look, if I get 10% of them to quit being a criminal and change their life, they still go to Walmart where my family's walking down the aisle. They still are part of this community. This isolationist attitude that people have that it's not in my backyard, bullshit it is, every bit of it,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to protect it to feel safe and together. And I'm like, if we don't make an effort, particularly as a lawyer on the legal thing of what this will do, quit being a habitual offender. You get another felony marijuana conviction, which is ridiculous. That's a whole other thing. You're going to get 10 years in prison. Boom, habitual offender. And it's kind of like, what are we really doing? Get out of our own way. And
Yeah.
what is our purpose? We all know wealthy people who have no friends, right? And they're
Yeah.
miserable, and I know a gazillion people who are unhealthy. They're not big just because they eat their feelings, they're out of place, or they're critical, or they want to come at you. You're like, okay, it's okay. This person is kind of miserable. We don't know the shoes that anybody else has put on their feet or the path they've walked. But by being encouraging, calling it out, like our close friends need to say, okay, Bill, that's bullshit.
Right.
Now they're like, you saying it. One of my favorite lines is saying it don't make it so.
That's true. That's a good
And
saying, actually.
and the other thing is lean in is a bunch of bullshit because they don't do it. They write it, but they don't fucking do it.
That's so
And
true.
and I chew women leaders out all the time and I work with them, going, what have you done to replicate or bring someone along? And it's because there's studies on this, but in the world as we know it, that there's not generations of women leaders being around replacing themselves. So they're forging their own new way. And I get that. But that's explainable, not justifiable. What are we doing? I watched the Iron Lady with about Margaret Thatcher. They showed the scene with all the shoes, and here's her pair of black pumps. Margaret, what did you do to get another woman a pair of black pumps in that parliament? Nothing. Dianne Feinstein, what did you do to replace yourself with women? Nothing. Nancy Pelosi, what did you do? Nothing. And the reason I say that until 2018, the number of women in Congress was diminishing. And I just mentioned two powerhouse ladies that I greatly admire, right? And it comes back to you're just as guilty as our current president. Everybody wants to be king. And what are we doing to put someone else in your position? When I was in the fraternity, that was what I did as a leader. If you're an honorary, that's great. I was in everyone on campus. I was that guy. I did no good if I didn't put somebody else from my fraternity. If I really want to build my fraternity's reputation, I want to replace them. And so you find, and my dad told me this as well. He's a pretty wise guy. He said, a pledge comes through. Bill, remember, they're not as where they start. Fraternities are supposed to build men. What are you doing to build your pledges? What are you doing to build? And I would find people going, hey, you're going to be great for SGA. You're going to be great for this. You're going to be so and so. And sometimes it's just somebody saying you can do. When
Yeah.
I when I left the fraternity, we were largest on campus. We had 2 years later, we had the head of every major thing on campus was a person in my fraternity. It worked,
Mm-hmm.
and it does work. And You're stronger when you build someone up.
Always. I mean, I've learned too, just being in this side of the world, it's actually crazy when I see people not uplifting their peers in
It
similar
happens all the
spaces.
time.
It's like
And
front facing, they play the role. Like if we're at an event together, everyone's taking photos, but behind the scenes, no one's I don't see a lot of the camaraderie that I would want to see. And so it is challenging and it's sad because it's like this is how we all grow and expand is by uplifting people who are trying to do the same thing, and maybe they'll do it better because we, you know what I mean? So it's paying it
you're
forward,
part
but I
of
feel
it.
like people have selfishly been like, no, I'm going to take this for myself and hold on to it until I turn into a corpse. Like, you
Their
know?
whole life is a shark, destroying their feeding grounds and moving on. When you were talking, I thought about Lauren Gussis, the writer creator of the whole thing behind Insatiable, and she and I collaborated for a couple of years till we kind of hit it.
Yeah,
But I can remember she called me, and I have a cameo in each of the things. I've never done scripted work before, right?
right.
And she thought it would be just kind of fun that I'd appreciate having a speaking role on the show.
Yeah.
Risk. I'm playing an MC. I can do the job. I did fine. But that I didn't ask for that. She didn't have
Hmm.
to do that. But she went and said, let's make this happen for him. He's a producer on the show, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it was great fun. And I can remember, and I know that they do this now a lot, but to me, it was my first experience after we shot the pilot. And that's where my first speaking role was. And it was time for me to leave. It was like 12:30. Keith Lemon, the director, called everybody in the room and said, okay, Bill's leaving. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here, blah, blah. He gave me a great little thing and went out. And I thought, well, that was nice. You know, when we did the premiere, Lauren said, if it hadn't been for this guy, we wouldn't be here, whatever. Yeah, those are nice things. And you would think that people would do it, but most times people focus in on, oh, I'm doing this, this is what I'm doing, whatever. And they're pushing themselves so much. And what I found from the West Coast life is everybody's nice to your face. Oh my God, you're fabulous. And then you don't ever hear from them. And in New York, they're like, yeah, I don't, that's not going to happen. And it's like, there's got to be a happy medium in between of dealing with humanity with more, I have talked to so many people that reach out to me or I'm getting this reality show. And I'm like, no, you're not. I'm sitting there going, no, baby, you hadn't even got a sizzle done. Somebody's interested and wants to talk to you, that's fine. Or you got somebody interest, but they grab on everything and then they believe it's going to happen. And I'm like, life is not a damn Santa Claus visit. And so, and if you want someone to be nice and kind to do something for you, pay it forward first.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be part of, to me, in my opinion, it should be part of your authentic makeup to be that way. I always think about how can this benefit the maximum amount of people? Because I want everyone to, it's like when you invite people to a party, you want everyone to have a good time. You're not just saying, well, you came, so you're on your own, enjoy
Well,
or
and people
don't.
do that now. They do. You're on your own. They don't even know basic etiquette of, hey, this is Giorgio and he does a podcast and we're doing this or whatever, and he just did blah, blah, blah of an interest to get the other person to engage. And then you leave and move on. Learn how to be a host.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people more like, look at me. I know him. Don't you like me more because I'm connected?
It's all showy now.
It's all showy now because we want to do that on social media and show that out.
So speaking of Insatiable, that was
Yeah,
probably one of the craziest periods in like the sense that it was inspired by your life and you
correct.
got to be a part of that. And it was such a, I mean, it was such a recognized, I mean, that name, people know exactly what that show is. So talk to me about like what your headspace was like when this kind of evolved, right? Because I mean, this was all such a big splash.
Listen, this is such a crazy ride when I tell this story. What happened was there's a man from my hometown named Byron, and Byron had a classmate from high school who was a college professor at Princeton. And Byron was a very successful attorney in New York, and they maintained a friendship. And then this professor then moved to Syracuse and had one of her students, a guy named Jeff Chu, wrote this is Christianity for Me, and it was about a gay struggle with Christianity, and they were doing a book reading or presentation or something. So Byron drove up to Syracuse, and Byron's gay, and he has been a supporter of mine and been very nice. One of the most caustic guys that I love to death.
Mhm.
He has the social skills of a gnat, but he is very direct, and he's so smart he can't be like regular conversation. People tire him out,
Mm.
but he's brilliant. And so they were there, and they're talking about at dinner with this author about they're from Podunk, Alabama, look where they are now, kind of thing. And then he said, well,
Hmm.
there's another guy from there who's just coached the last two Miss Americas. Well, he took an interest, started talking with me. He was a freelance journalist. That rolled into the New York Times Magazine, giving 7 pages. Now, a lot of them were photos, but 7 pages to me. I have yet to see anybody that has had 7 pages in the New York Times
I mean,
Magazine.
that's like a Vogue spread.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, no, I
But
mean, it's
but
big.
but Mr. Under a Rock didn't know that, and I thought it was real fun. And they did a little video thing with it. It wasn't going to run, and then it ran, whatever. Then I had 40 production companies knocking on my door, calling me, going, "We've already seen you on film. We want to do this. Oh, great, this is fun, whatever."
Hmm.
My secretary called and go, "My God, Nightline's on the phone. They want to interview you and all this kind of stuff." So that rolls into the phone call I got when CBS bought my life rights. And at the same time, I'm navigating this reality show project. I was able to cut a deal that I could have a reality show and a scripted show at the same time, which I later found out was highly unusual.
Yes.
And I wouldn't give up one or the other because I'm like, I don't know what's going to stick. So the reality show goes, and the original plan for the scripted show was to really be like the reality show, more of small town guy living in a town, kind of like a modern Mayberry RFD with twist, right?
Yeah.
So that went out the window, and Lauren was like, I can't do that. So we changed the location from Alabama to Georgia, so it wasn't so obvious. And then we start just getting to know each other and very probing questions. And I would think of things, and she would laugh to me and said, I could tell when you took an Ambien and went to sleep because I got a 3:30 in the morning text from you. Because I would wake up, I'm just that guy, wake up middle of the night and stuff, and boom, 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 boom. So we start working and developing. And then the story, everything that, even things that we hadn't talked about, ended up being consistent. I was like, I can remember after the first season watching it and calling Lauren going, you realize everything was me. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, I had the affair. Yes, they came over. He had Christmas dinner with my family after he got divorced. Yes, I had a client that, we knew I had had pageant clients that had legal troubles before and had a. The first scene is a stand your ground defense where Patty punches the guy and we turn it around for court and how to win it. I had actually just done that in court. Dealing with the guy that plays my son and it had the personality of William, my son, when he talks to her and he's nice because William was most popular. He was kind to people. He is not the smart ass that I am. He got that from his mom. My daughters have my sharp tongue. Now he can handle himself without a doubt, but he just doesn't lead into the smart ass comment, right? And so
Hmm.
he picks up Fatty Patty and it's like all of a sudden the fat girl loves him and whatever, and William has gone through those kind of things. So it really kind of mirrored. All they did was take my life and make it bigger. I never was involved in a trouble sexually, but so that's how they took it and made it bigger. And then at the end of the first season, my oldest daughter called me and said, Dad, the other Bob is more you. And I said, it's so funny you figure that out. I was talking to Lauren about that, and she said, they both are you. One is you before you feel confident and comfortable with who you are, your sexuality. One is the confident guy that you are today. We split it into two characters.
Fascinating.
It's fascinating. She's brilliant. And the only problem to me was Insatiable. I think it was 2 years too early because the things we cover in that show are all over TV now. I think we're the first show that did the little text messages and the bubbles show up. We're one of the first ones that did that.
I think you're right, actually,
Yeah.
about that.
And then the utilization not only of gay, bisexuality, trans, all in the same damn show.
Hmm.
And there's some brilliant things like Southern couples would adopt Asian babies, but do you know why they adopted Asian babies?
No.
They're not black. And
Is
that was
that the loophole?
well, what did the Asian actress, I just went blank on her name, that plays Dixie, what her name was Dixie.
Okay,
Got
right.
it, right? There's all these subtleties that come into play. Now I'm working with foster care. I just worked with a black family that took foster care of white kids and adopted them in my very southern town. I mean, it's a lot different. But when I grew up, going to China to get a baby is what a lot of particularly southern other couples did too.
Hmm.
But I can remember my own mother, I love her to death, but when I was dating another boyfriend who had adopted some children in DC and they were black, my mother said, why did he adopt black children? Like, couldn't you have adopted a Spanish or whatever? She didn't say that, but that's what she was saying. And I said, Mom, because 15 years ago, he took people that were in need and that's what was available. And he's a gay man. We couldn't go in and just sign the form and go in and pick a baby. And my mother worked with lower income, socioeconomic deprived and did a lot of work there. And she'd
Hmm.
never contemplated that. She didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And she sat back and she goes, "Oh, well, that's awfully kind. Yes, it is. And it's helping love a child. We don't make friends by our skin pigmentation, but I grew up in an area that we separated life by skin. I was going to school when we integrated. I start school in an all-white school. 2 years later, I'm integrated,
Wow.
and I went through that. I've sat in class and had black hands stroke my hair because the texture is different. Just curiosity, just like a kid, right?
Yeah.
And my kids went to after school program. My son was voted everything in school, and part of it's because he was with working families' kids as well, of all races. But when I grew up in the South, it was black white. The most popular guy in my high school was a Hispanic guy, the only one I knew in my school. Nickname was Taco. How horrible is that?
Yeah.
Horrible. And I said to him recently when I saw him, because I've always called him Richard, and I said, I just want to apologize for people I went to school with 30, 40 years ago. And he's so gracious. And this is why he was a great leader and a super successful man. He said, "Bill, when I hear someone call me Taco, it's kind of a word of affection for me because it's somebody I went to high school with." And I said, "Nonetheless, your name is Richard.
Yeah.
Right? Let's do better. Let's do better." And I have brought that up to other classmates going, "Y'all, we were horrible." I didn't call him Taco, but I threw myself in the group so I'm not making them feel defensive. And they would sit back going, "Oh my God, I hadn't thought about that. That's awful. Like, you're fired and you can't." And a lot of people don't know that we're not California, New York. And over a majority of states, you can do that. And we have another thing. If you don't have a written contract, you're an employee at will. They don't have to tell you a reason. Bye. And so be careful. And if you're doing it if you're using anybody, I don't care if you're like claiming knowing me or knowing you or whomever to enhance who you are by who you are friends with, that reveals a very insecure person down deep. And we
Hmm.
need to pick up on those clues of where that's going. And when we're there and we see someone do it, particularly if it's something that could put someone at risk, and I encourage people to be me. I don't really know if they want to be your hors d'oeuvre today. Maybe let's don't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I think
But
you got to
people shy
also
away
learn how
from it.
to, I think people need to also learn. I've learned recently too, people don't know how to read the room anymore.
They don't
So,
care because they're all self-absorbed, narcissistic. They read their mirror and what they're seeing and how it affects them.
yeah. And it makes you, every conversation just feels like an interview sometimes at some of these things because you can feel that the person's trying to dig out whether you're worth speaking to or not. So I can always feel it, and then I get instantly annoyed, and then I just start giving them bullshit answers so that they'll just like, you're not really here to like chat. You're just trying to see what you can get out of
I
me.
toy with them too. It becomes interesting. Get me another drink. What can I do here? But I actually coach people on going to functions and what's your purpose for going there? Are you trying to achieve something? Is this a cocktail party you're trying to line a contract on? What are we doing? What are we navigating? And then don't waste, the thing I've done is not to get sucked in by one person taking me away from what I'm there because I'm handling their issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do care as a human and I hear about, well, my nephew's gay and his parents. I'm like, now I'm saying, I would love to talk with you. Call me. Let's make an appointment at the office and I'd be happy to give you some of my time. 9 out of 10 times that call doesn't make, but every now and then it does. I've coached parents on how to have their kids act and talk at school because they all communicate with text and they don't know how to be supportive of others.
Mm-hmm.
And just learning these basic kind of skill sets that we were all raised with. When's the last time you got a thank you note? You know, right? Right? And I'm like, that you. I was coaching a girl from Rush just yesterday, and I said, "This other girl's finished with you. Look at her and say, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I really, whatever." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Learn to do it, honey. I don't care if you're from Washington State and y'all don't talk that way."
I love a good thank you card. I
I love
love
one.
a good monogrammed thank you card. I love receiving one. I don't care what it's for. I've had people send one just for thanks for having a great time and experience with me. It was
That's it.
lovely. And that's just, I feel like we've lost that. It's just kind of like like, okay, thanks. Like,
So we're self-absorbed and lazy, and we don't realize what we like. Be the friend you want to have, and it's not a hard rule to follow.
so just want to, I know you're busy, don't want to take up any more of your time, Bill, but going by, I am fascinated by your approach, not only on the show, but in general, because your background is so, because of it being so rich, I feel like you bring a lot of different perspectives to both the mom and the daughter in the situation. One in particular that stood out was, I think her name was Emily. The
Uh-huh.
mom and yourself had taken a step out to speak, and the mom had a very vulnerable moment with you where she said, I am afraid that I am setting her up to basically get a bunch of hate. And that struck a chord with me only because I think it's a natural feeling to have that. B, how does one navigate that? And how did you know where to kind of come in? Because you really came in that moment and you kind of leveled the playing field for her to say, okay, yes, but also what are you looking for out of this? And so it's kind of a, do you sense that happens a lot when you're moms? Do they ever pull you aside and say, wait, is this more for me? Or is it, you know what I mean?
I don't say that, but that's what it is.
Okay.
That's what it is. And we actually got, Carol Ann actually said, maybe I want this more than she does.
Mm-hmm.
As parents, and what I'm seeing today, and I was guilty of it. I mean, in elementary school, my daughter took violin, ballet, piano, played soccer, played softball, and finally I was exhausted running her, and I said, something's got to quit. And my daughter was like, yes, I'm getting worn out. We want every opportunity we can provide, and if it's not here, we'll drive to get it, etc. I mean, I drove, my daughter was in basketball, she was super tall, needed to be twice a week. I'm driving 5 hours round trip, taking her to basketball practice at night, right?
Wow.
When you have a child, and Carol Ann is that person, but she wanted her daughter to have her experience. And I lived that firsthand through my ex-wife. My ex-wife, when I met her, she was already pledged class president of her sorority, but her mother was president of her sorority. And so when my daughter went through Rush, both of those ladies had been president, and they wanted my daughter to pledge her sorority. And thankfully, through where I was engaged with conversation with my ex-wife, she came, I just want her to be supported. I don't, but on prep day, my mother-in-law drove down for bid day. And she kept thinking blue and white, blue and white. She wanted her to be an 80 pie. And I already knew that she wasn't. And that's where it comes through because this was great. But I learned it from us. People will reveal themselves if you're a little bit attentive. When I was getting married, my soon-to-be mother-in-law wanted my wife to carry calla lilies. My wife loved calla lilies, but she wanted her to carry. And lo and behold, I saw the damn picture of my mother-in-law, and guess what she carried? Calla lilies. They replicate because it gives them validity to their life if their kid is doing the same thing and it's successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you know that, you jump into it. And that's kind of what I was doing with Carol Ann. There was a side conversation. She was trying to diet and exercise her. And I'm like, we're not going to talk about weight. This girl goes to Rush in a month and a half. We're not going to give somebody body dysmorphia because I had body dysmorphia
Mm-hmm.
with the best intentions. I was so skinny, my parents would put wheat germ on my food. They made me take karate to where I wasn't even comfortable in my own home. I still don't have a lot of mirrors in the bathroom. I have one to shave my face. I'm okay with my body now. I'll take my clothes off, but I didn't then. I was 6 feet and 120 pounds in the ninth grade. They laughed at me
Wow.
with shorts, and I didn't wear shorts in public again for the whole time I was in high school. It was magnified in my brain, but that's where I sat. So I'm very empathetic with someone who's not secure about their body. Emily is a curvaceous, more stockier type person.
Mhm.
My big thing with her was, and we showed on the show, finding the clothes that fit. Don't and clothes. And we went to one store that was tended to go for older women, and she had more of a woman's body than a teenage body. But I wanted her to have the older women's, wanted the younger styles,
Got you. Yes, I see.
and it made her feel successful. But when the mom tells me she's making cauliflower pasta to help her eat, and the rest of the family got real pasta, they didn't put on there because I kind of lost my grits. I was like, no, we're not doing that. Because
Oh
what you're
yeah, no, that's not cool. Everyone should be eating the cauliflower pasta then. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, I
exactly,
wouldn't like
yeah.
that either.
But I have that experience with pageant girls that have swimsuit competitions really trying, or anybody training for sports trying to get, they go out to eat and they get a salad and everybody else has a steak and a cheesecake. That's cruel.
Oh God, those days. The early 2000s were rough on us, Bill.
Right. Yeah, But I also tell people like just like if you're okay with your body and you're getting off and you're having great sex, you do you, right?
Yeah, a thousand
Who's want to
percent.
complain when you're Humpty Dumpty and you want to have, the prince from Ariel, from The Little Mermaid to sleep with? And I'm like, you probably have to purchase that unless he's into that type of guy. And don't get mad at him for taking care of himself, and people get pissed at me and I'm like, think it through. Who's
Y-
investing the time and that interest in there?
I will say you are very blunt in the best possible way. Because you know what? A lot of people I feel are just so not even close to authentic anymore with feedback or like whatever the respective issue is. Even I've seen friends not be like honest with the other friend, but then tell the other friend when that friend leaves what they should have told their friend. Like, leave him,
Yeah.
stop complaining and do something different.
And do it
But
with love.
like,
Do it
yes,
with
but
love.
that to me means you love, I want people around me to challenge what I'm
Make me
doing. If
better.
they, yes.
Learned that from a good friend of mine years ago in law school. Teresa was still a lifelong friend. And she and I both clerked together at the courthouse, and we'd go have coffee and a ham biscuit every morning, Southern, and chat about life or whatever. But I always could ask her questions, and she always gave great advice. And one time, she was at my house, and my wife and I had an argument. And then Cindy left, and Teresa was there with me. And she immediately looked at me and went, "You're a shit. That's horrible. You talked to her horribly." And then she turned around and said, "Come on now, we gotta go. We gotta go meet these people for cocktails." She still loved me through it. She busted my balls, but hugged me really with her words.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that from her. It's the problem is people think if you're critical of me, you don't like me anymore.
Yes.
And
It's
they
like,
can't
oh,
get
you
that
hate
wrong
me
damn way,
now.
right? And the problem is you have too many frenemies,
Uh-huh.
and eliminate those people from your life. There is something to be said, keep your enemies closer. I get that phrase, but that should only be done in business or something you have a plan and a goal, not who you're having over to watch movie night with.
Yes.
I'm not, I have a big thing. I have a good friend, Kyle, and he told me, because somebody once told me it was me, and we laugh about it. We have finite time. There's 24 hours in the day. They're not going to be expended. And so if someone sucks 2 hours out of your night and you allow that, you can bitch, go, "Oh my God, she sucked the life out of me and I missed everything." And my response is, "Why did you stay talking to her?" And all of a sudden, crickets. And I'm like, we can control that. We can walk away, as they say on Royals, walk away. And we
Yeah.
can walk on here and
Yeah,
don't
it's
make,
interesting. I think I learned that in therapy. I had that question posed. So why did you do it? I was like, what do you mean? Why are you asking me that?
yeah,
I'm
they
here
were
for you
mean
to
to
help
me.
me.
They were bad to me. They took my thing, whatever. Okay, so what did you do about it? And why are you going back? And why are you going out for the weekend? I did a TikTok. If you're going to travel with someone, do an overnight with them first.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Because nobody wants to spend 5, 10 grand on a great trip by some fucking sourpuss who wants everything done their way.
I always tell people, aside from living with someone before you marry them, you need to travel with them too, because people are very different when you travel. Put them in an airport or an airplane. I need to see all the situations that I could possibly be in.
I broke this rule, but a friend of mine, one of my boyfriends, said you really don't need to get married or hook up with anybody permanently till you've done a whole year and gone through all the seasons, all the holidays, all the shit. See, there's a lot of wisdom there.
Mm-hmm.
But we all live in a Hallmark movie, and we all want to trust our own gut. Everybody laughs about the lesbians. I'll meet you for 2 weeks and move in together. When Doug moved in with me, I got text messages, "Oh, y'all a bunch of lesbians," because it was like a month and a half, but it was in a different circumstance. And I just laughed about it. I didn't get mad about that, but it's still keeping your eye and your ear open.
Mm-hmm.
And we settle. And we're afraid that if I don't get this one today, where am I going to be down the road tomorrow? How about learn to be happy with you?
Mm-hmm.
That's the scariest thought of all. It's great to be alone when you choose it. Nobody wants to be lonely because nobody else included. And like, I don't get invited to dinner. I don't get to so and so. Well, who have you invited? Well, I invited this person 3 times and they never call me back. And I learned this from my ex-wife, to tote their baggage. If you love your time with them and you have a great time, and you don't get mad at the person that lets everybody arrange everything and call them. But if you're not loving all the time you have with that person, then maybe that person's just not into your friendship. Like,
Yeah.
and that means find other things to keep yourself busy to do. Try new things. Go play pickleball. You may suck at it. Laugh it off and say, I suck. And then you see the people who have husband and my ex-wife are the most patient people of teaching people. I am impatient. I know that about myself. I already said this 2 minutes ago. I'm now saying it for the third time. Are you deaf, Helen Keller? That pisses people off. But I'm like, wake the fuck up. It kind of works with what people hire me for.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had people walk up to me at parties going, oh my God, if I knew you were coming, I wouldn't wear that. And I'm like, way to ruin my night. Fuck off. I just said hello,
Yeah.
you know? And now I make jokes about, well, that's unfortunate. You're in public and people are going to take pictures. I'd have seen them anyway. So if you need to go home and change, go do it. Otherwise, I just want to say hello. It's good to see you.
My God. People project so much
They do.
sometimes without even anything being said.
They will tell you who they are if you just pay a little bit of attention.
Yes, I've noticed that more and more lately. People they like it. They want people to be nosy.
They want to feel like they've got 100 likes on everything they're doing. And it's interesting to me where that plays into a role and you're like, okay, what? All right. When I find out what books they read or if they don't read, or if what TV shows they watch and that kind of stuff, it tells me where somebody is on their own self-development. Do they want to learn something new? Are they expansive? I love talking to people about hunting wives because that opens up a different side of the gay conversation
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on. And even the straightest people in the world watch that show. And then I laugh and say, what do you think about the sheriff and Peg? And like, oh my God, I didn't know what that was at first. And oh my God, whatever. And then they start laughing. Why do yes, it's sadistic humor because I know it makes them uncomfortable and I can tell them about anything. But what I'm saying by that is we've got to learn to normalize whatever you want to do with your body is fine as long as it's consensual with the other person. Shut up.
Yeah, I think that well, first of all, I think as long as no one is being harmed and everyone is an adult and you know, everyone knows what's happening here, go do you. I
Right.
really don't understand why everyone gets so enamored and like so flustered around what the thought of because you'd be surprised. I met so many people that are very buttoned up, that are very much not looking edgy in any sort of way. And I've seen them at some really shitty dive bars doing some really weird stuff. So all I'm saying is
They
it
run
doesn't
from it.
matter. Correct. However, someone excels in any of those categories, that's what makes us individuals. And that's what I feel like we lack
Interesting.
now is like, I want more I love people that just are on their own beat.
It,
Like,
I like conversation that stimulates. I like enjoying time with you. I don't know if you've seen this off-Broadway show called Prince Faggot. It's wonderful. It's very interesting and introspective, but they show it's about what if Prince George is gay and he has a gay marriage, and they go through and the actors that are revealing as they play these roles their own sexuality and their own growth. It's very it would lead to such good conversations after a show. I would highly recommend it. But in one scene, they talk about how he was so buttoned up having to be the prince. So with his reaction and then they show a scene literally, and he's butt ass naked, tied up, strapped up to hanging things or whatever, like he had to get into bondage, right? That's what but they were showing because he's so forced into this box, his
yeah.
overreaction goes out. And so many people do that in some way, form, or fashion. People rebel. Goth look, which is not my favorite look. Who wants to look dead? But a lot of kids in high school would do that to
Mm-hmm.
be rebellious to their parents, to say, basically, this is my life. You can't control it. So when I work with that people, most people, we segue into learning to speak as an individual at home. And I have to work with the moms and dads on learning to
Mm-hmm.
listen to them. I've only had one situation which she came in, her daughter was brilliant, super high test scores, and
Uh-huh.
she's going to go to Vanderbilt and she's going to be in physics. So I'm like, we're building up for the interview. Nothing she did related to that. None of the people she interested, she didn't know who Madame Curie was. She didn't know women that did stuff. But the most thing was, it was great for her mother to sit at the country club and talk about how brilliant, whatever, and how smart she is. And she's going to be a physics major. She's going to be a physicist. How amazing, and she's just so smart, and whatever. Well, the girl burst into tears and said, I said, well, let's find out who you are and what you want. After they
Yeah.
got that daughter in the car and went, no, 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 no. He is fucking up my plans. And I'm like, I would love to know where that girl is today because that's not what she wanted to be.
Right. Right. Well, it's the pressure of like what everyone else is telling you when you maybe haven't even thought of it until you have to, and then it's already like in front of your face.
Kids don't graduate, they don't even work in their majors. 40% of kids work outside of their majors because a counselor at school said, you're so smart, you should be a doctor, you should be an engineer. You should be. Here's the funniest thing. I did one of those little tests when I was in senior or freshman in college of what I should be based upon your life. You'll probably get a good stitch. Mine came back with the analysis. I should be a funeral home director. Now let's just wake up. I mean, really.
Could you see yourself doing that though?
I represent funeral homes, but I don't. I mean, I would be in there going, okay, Granny is dead and y'all live in a double wide. You ain't got no money for that $15,000 casket. We're not going there. You're not gonna be able to pay for it. Let's stay within our budget. No,
Yeah, well, maybe you should do it then. You wouldn't.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a moneymaker, trust me,
It
because people
is.
want to relive the thing. And I one time made it at a party, made a comment that I was getting cremated, and the wife of the funeral home director came up and was again in public, you're cutting my money. People follow what you say.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need to do that at this function. I get it. And so, so anyway, there's that.
Oh, Bill, it's been so great talking to you. Thanks so much. But before I let you go, I do want to know what lies ahead for you now. Like, I know we've got a lot of things going on. You clearly have been very busy up until now. What's next?
I don't know. There's nothing really in the works. Yay, I would love us to get a season two. That would be fabulous. Or even do other projects. I enjoy, there were some things that talks at one point during COVID that kind of went away, kind of some group things, participating with others. Um, I don't know where it will go. I'm in a much better headspace after doing the first show and even being involved with Insatiable to where we really clicked filming. The showrunners were amazing. They got me. They would say, I'm like, I just need to know what's our objective and then let me go. And they're like, wow, we found this out. Let's go here. And that's great. I've learned not, I, I'm a good co-pilot, not necessarily a pilot. I'm a great pilot advising others, but when I do me, so it is one of those things with faith. I don't know what's going to come around the corner. I'm hoping that there's some notice in the LGBT community that yes, this little guy from Alabama is doing something, and then either next week or the week after we have a same-sex couple and their daughter going through. We are, it's very much, they say Bill was married to a woman, now he's married to Doug. It's very much open of yes, I'm a gay guy living in South Alabama. I don't know if that resonates to any. We are fighting the good fight. In my little community that always voted for Trump, and I was a Pete Buttigieg delegate. My little face and thing was on the billboard. And interestingly enough, my children and my ex-wife said, "Proud of you, Dad," because that, imagine me supporting the gay candidate in this community wasn't going far. But interestingly enough, had he stayed in the race, I was the number one person on the delegate of the whole area, including Montgomery South, that had he stayed in, I could go in there. Now, sadly, his campaign never followed up and contacted. So, as brilliant as he is, some of his staff dropped the ball. We don't need to. I get focus on where the votes are. I get focus on the high concentration of demographics. But if we can reach people out that necessarily don't fit that area, I think we expand even bigger.
I
You know,
agree.
I did an interview with French TV about the show. They don't understand sororities. Great, we can talk about it. And a lot of people that don't understand pageants or what we're doing, and I can tell success stories and how people, it's their way of finding things.
Hmm.
Not with the perfect school environment and the perfect zip code and the perfect place where we can have everything available to us, but can we do things that give us the next bus ticket, train ticket, plane ticket to get where we want to go? And like I talk about my grandfather, he lived in Alabama and moved to New York and would go in the summers to get his PhD from NYU and Columbia. That was unheard of in the 30s and 40s. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense. And his father died when he was one. He was raised with relatives, sent off to boarding school, and then I have, there's different things. So why not? So when I had a good family friend whose daughter could go to school and say it, but don't be afraid of
Absolutely.
independence and growth. Now I have a daughter that lives in New York. The other one lives in San Diego. So they're so independent. They're not here every weekend.
Yeah.
And so be careful what you ask for, but ultimately we want them to be successful and grow. And so who knows what that can be? I'm hoping more fun things come and the phone rings. Let's do this. Be on this show. Do whatever. It's till I, you know, can't take Viagra anymore and my blood pressure just drops and I have to sit in a wheelchair.
No, I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of the show A Sorority Mom's Guide to Rush because it's new, it's innovative, it's fresh, it's a fresh take on this, pageant sorority kind of and dynamic in that way. And Lifetime, I think will renew it for a second season because I think you guys are doing really well with
And I
the
would say,
stories and the way that the just everything flushes together. It just works. It doesn't seem too gimmicky or overproduced.
and I have to say that I'm Lauren, that is the lead, the developer of the whole thing with Ice was amazing. Brandon that I work with, Danny, Shauna, Jessica, all the people, they got to know me. They've been in my home. They see what we can do with. I like being what I would say the great piece of marble and they're Michelangelo going to turn it into something.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been kind of, when I did Coach Charming, I would do a scene, and Kevin Lee, the producer, would say, "Okay, that's great. I love everything you said, but you sound like a lawyer. I need you to sound like a dad." So I learned the different hats. But what's our ultimate goal here? What are we seeing? And then they will grow and they will see a situation going, wait a minute. Like when I told Paula to be mute, they didn't tell me to tell her to shut up. They just let me go. And she was
Mm-hmm.
fighting over her daughter, and I was like, you're gonna have to stop, mom. You
Yeah,
know,
it was. I mean, you can tell that there's moments where you're just like, no, we're not doing this.
no,
And
no, it
it's
just
coming from a real place, not a like we're on TV place. Like I
and
could,
they
you
let
can
it.
sense it.
And they let it and they went with that. And so that's why I think the show truly is authentic. We did not create problems for any of the girls. Any issues they're dealing with is authentic to them. And they had fleshed a lot of that out on the front end and seeing where they're going and what can happen. And then we kind of react and see what does happen and what is going. Like when we did Nina and she's giggling so much, they didn't know that was going to be an issue, but that was her nervousness. And I realized protect herself.
Yeah.
And
I
so
feel
we
like
got to play.
reality TV is kind of it's a therapeutic bubble,
If
you
it comes
know?
from that place, if it comes from that place,
Yes, 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 yes.
it can be, and that's one thing. I really feel like we have things with purpose. I've had, even though I guess I'm the star in some ways, but I'm not the star. It's not called King of Rush Bill. But I've had more people say that they are learning more. They're watching it. I have non-sorority, non-Greek, non-anything, and they're seeing where it can go, and that gives me a great sense of satisfaction.
Well, it was like I said at the top of the episode, it's been a topic on social media for the last couple of years because we're seeing,
Right.
the rush trends, we're seeing all of the sorority things like that. So I think it's good timing for this show and the conversations that are being had. And obviously, I now can't picture anybody else doing what you're doing on this show. So they're going to have to stick with you, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's kind of way I look at it is way back when I can remember watching the Olympics and then they would show you the little story of the athlete from where they're home, whatever. I kind of feel like we have a little bit of that, where this person's coming from,
Mm-hmm. Well,
right?
it gives context to who they are a little bit. Obviously, you can't show the full personality show, but if you do a good enough job, I believe you can get enough of their story that people walk away with enough context.
And I think people know the girls. I like when I was dealing with Nina and, people run from race questions. I don't. She went to Ole Miss and she's a mixed girl. That went 20 years ago. She wouldn't have gone there. And I talk about you went there and you liked it and you saw yourself there, but she knew that that could potentially be a hurdle. And I'm like, but you think this is where you want to be. You have a right to be where you want to be,
Absolutely.
And we built on that and it turned beautifully. Well, everybody was saying this. And I'm like, well, we've got two mixed girls and we have a black girl. Parents are from Ghana. All three of them are in sorority. So you might want to back off and realize this is not the movie The Help and it's not 1965. It's easier to say people are X. No, learn them and realize where they're progressing and growing. Yeah, Mississippi ain't great on gay issues, but clearly on this issue, they've made some great progress, and they are.
But I
We're
think
not.
that goes back to people like yourself and others that are not leaving and are staying to make impacts where they can, because that is what is going to ultimately change the entire landscape down the road. It's not going to be selfishly doing things for your own gain and then, leaving the scene as soon as you're done and everyone's just left to deal with it on their own. I think the way the show is approaching it is actually honest, and it's holding the moms accountable. It's holding the daughters accountable to say, like, what do you actually want?
And I will say
So
this was very key on the honest. They didn't want contrived or made up or anything because in the world we live in, people could deep dive in somebody's social and realize that's a complete bullshit lie. So they were really, really clear on that's not her story, or this is her story, or this is so and so. They would let me watch the audition tape, so I got a vibe of who I was meeting. And then, as they bring me in and I'm meeting and working with them, and, yes, the mom may have been the one that wanted the rush coach. I worked with a girl yesterday on the phone. Her mom set it up, and the girl didn't think she needed it at all. By the end of it, she was like, yeah, okay, now I see what I need to be doing. I'm going to listen to what mom said. And lots of times I'm echoing what mom says, but then sometimes I tell mom, you need to stop. Because I've known
mhm,
girls that this is what's impressive. As I tell people, there's a reason that everybody lives in Utah has the highest percentage on Prozac because everybody, when I went out there and I would meet these girls in pageant coaching or pageant judging years ago, they would talk about their goal was to go to Brigham Young and get married in the temple. What's next? No answer,
that's it.
right? And while that is a great goal, where are we pulling? And that's why all these things now are happening out of Utah and Salt Lake because you're seeing the growth and development of what people have happened. And so don't put them in the box of 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think people need to start realizing that people, with the access to technology and the internet, they do have access. There is a lot more progressiveness in these smaller communities, even in the South. But that doesn't mean it's completely like it's
Oh,
not,
it's not.
it's not
There's still
Manhattan, it's
places you
not
don't
Los
go.
Angeles, obviously, but those shouldn't be compared because the people in all the regions are different in how they are culturally. So it wouldn't make sense to compare. But that progressiveness will only continue to push forward if there's people like you in the communities that really show up, and you're also a public figure, so everything you do is going to make a splash and it's going to set a tone, right? So it's with good intention, I think. um I think your story is fascinating. You're obviously made for television. Obviously, the show was made for you. I know it's about the moms and the daughters, but you're definitely the hit of the show, in my opinion.
I appreciate it.
Uh, thank you, Bill, again for joining. You'll have to come back on. I forgot to ask, do you watch any Bravo TV shows or anything like? Are
I,
you familiar with the Housewives?
I am familiar. I'm not like watching it all the time, but it's funny when I did Coach Charmin, I didn't even do reality TV, and then I started watching it and kind of building in it. And one thing I did want to throw, it's mylifetime.com or on the Lifetime app because we're all streaming now. It's not on the linear, it's not on the channel. They changed it to streaming because that's where their demographic is.
Got
Um,
it.
so anybody can watch it for free that way. So you can get it Apple TV and iTunes and whatever. But yeah, no, it's I've enjoyed watching other developments, other shows, because they do things a little bit differently. Some reality turns into a scripted series that would be an old,
Mm-hmm.
different. You have like Below Deck, and you have the Housewives and doing their kind of thing. One thing I love about this one is it's not all the argument raising hell. We don't have to have that energy burst to still get to where we're going to kind of go. So I think mine is you can sit and have a glass of wine and watch it and really get invested in the people and root and holler for them. And that's one thing I really like what they've done.
Um, I just had an amazing idea. I think they should have you as a guest on Real Housewives of either Salt Lake
Oh, it
City
would
or
be fun.
Beverly. You would have the best time with those women, all of them actually. But I think I could see you Beverly Hills or Salt Lake City for sure.
And and here's the thing, I am a divorce attorney that does a lot of negotiations where you're working. And so I have to tell
Perfect.
people
They all need them.
they all need it until like, honey, no, stop. And they all need a gay best friend. One less injectables today, sweetie.
Please, they need someone to tell them one less injectable. We need to pass it forward. Bill, thank you again. I've held you hostage, but I appreciate it. It's Friday. Go stream A Sorority's Mom's Guide to Rush on the Lifetime app. or mylifetime.com. It is available on Wednesdays, I believe. New
Yes.
episodes air. Yes, and you'll have to come back.
I'd love to.
So once you have dug into a little bit, I'm gonna have to give you some homework. Like maybe watch Salt Lake City since it just
Okay.
started, and then
Okay.
I'll have you come back on so we can discuss your thoughts. Because I think
Perfect.
this group of women, you would have so much great commentary. So we'll definitely have you back on. And everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. And until the next episode, guys, I will talk to you on the next one. Bye.
Bye now.
We need to talk about this. Talk about this.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast.
We need to talk about this.